Today I want to talk to you about the mistake. Don't ignore advice from those with experience in your niche. So it's a Thursday morning, and this is where I talk about all things past experiences in property investing and business, and my popular mistake series, of which there are literally hundreds of them. And today's mistake is a pretty costly one, to be honest with you. And it sounds pretty obvious, and I think without being ageist, I would say this is probably more aimed at the younger demographic listening to this episode. And the reason I say that is because this is where I made one of my biggest mistakes. And I didn't just make the mistake once, I made it twice, which makes it worse. Because what's the rule of a mistake? It's not, you don't beat yourself up too much as long as you learn from it. But if you do the same mistake again, then there's something going wrong. You need to evaluate that. So the mistake I want to talk about today is don't ignore advice given to you from those with experience in your niche. Now, there's a couple of key points here. You know, if people aren't in your niche and they're giving you advice, then you can make your own assumption or your own decision-making process on whether you're going to take that advice seriously. But it might be that they're extremely seasoned in business or have huge experience, so you may take that, or it might just be someone who's giving you an off-the-fly comment. I think that's down to you to kind of determine. But if there are people who are very much operating in your niche and they have experience and credibility to give you the advice, then you should definitely listen to it. And I go back to when I started my property business. This links to another mistake I made when I talked about the impact of financial analysis, manipulating the data to give you the answer you want rather than the real truth, which is pretty important as well. Because I'm very much a management by numbers philosophy type of guy, but I'm also experienced enough now to realise that you can manipulate numbers, and it's not a good thing. It's a bad habit. You can make things look better than they are. You can convince yourself, so you're almost lying or cheating to yourself, it makes it even worse if you're selling something and you put enhanced figures on some sales data. That's shocking. That's something that I've been caught by on numerous occasions, and I would never do it. It's just your integrity, your reputation just falls apart if you go down that route. So please don't do that. But so back to this mistake, how it applied to me. Well, those of you know my property background, I used to have a portfolio of 96 properties. It's a bit smaller than that now as we're consolidating and selling off units in line with where we are in our business cycle, which is absolutely fine. But the strategy at the very beginning was all based on numbers, which, it's not all necessarily was a bad thing. And I'd like to think that they were true numbers. I don't think that I kind of manipulated them too much in that regard. The issue is the numbers were false, pure and simply because I didn't have experience in the market I was going into. Now, the market I was going into, our property journey started single lets. Okay, we were buying no money down single lets, but we realised very quickly that the income or the profit you're going to make is so small per property, the return on investment is so low. So how can we increase that return on investment? I'll tell a lie. The return on investment was infinite because we were getting paid to buy houses. So we should just sat on the single let occupancy process because we hadn't put anything in, yet we were getting a profit out. So return on investment was infinite. However, if you bought in a traditional sense, a single let get 200-300 quid a month profit when you may have put in 30, 40, 50,000 or more, the return on investment is really low. It means it's going to be years and years and years to get your money back. And that's not making your money work as hard as it possibly can. So that was the quandary number one that we had. And we then fell into kind of the LHA market in that we were approached by a local charity. This was up in the northwest, homeless charity. They were saying, look, can we use your accommodation? We'll provide you with a steady flow of income. We'll provide you with the support. Sorry, a steady flow of tenants. We'll provide you with the support to manage the tenants that are homeless and give them a stepping stone back into the real world. So it wouldn't just be something you're doing for monetary reasons, but it'd be something that you're giving back and helping, which was great. It sounded amazing. So we kind of went into that, and by all accounts, that worked pretty well. We then got taught by Mike Frisbee about LHA strategies. This is where we were introduced to the process of 2+2, putting 2 tenants into property, giving them exclusive usage of 2 rooms. It had to be over 35, but you then get an increased rent for those individuals. So we started doing that. So as a result, our profits went up, return on investment increased, which was great. But still, we're still hungry, we still wanted more, we were still buying more properties using our no money down strategies. So the next thing we were doing was getting educated with progressive property at the time, and that's kind of where I learned all the no money down strategies at the time. And then we started talking about HMOs. That was an advanced strategy at the time with progressive. We're going back kind of 10 years now here, and it wasn't as mainstream as it is today. And it looked really good, looks amazing. But I distinctly remember the first piece of advice I was given. This was by Mark Homer, one of the founding members of Progressive Property. Obviously, he's several steps further down the property journey than me, so he has vast experience in property. He's somebody I would always take advice from, or I'd like to think I did. On this occasion, I didn't know, but I was young and naive. I was back in my mid-20s, probably early 20s, when this was happening. And the issue is that he said HMOs are great, and he's doing really well with HMOs, but he's in the process of coming away from LHA HMOs. He says the problem with that is you've got 2 high-risk strategies. You've got LHA, which is a demographic that you need to have more care and consideration for. They're a demographic that need help 100%, because it's bringing people a stepping stone back into kind of hopefully the working life and making improvements in their life. But you can get the chaotic ones, more so than you'd experience, or my experience is more so than you'd experience with professional tenants. And I remember Mark Homer saying, don't mix the 2. He's done that, and it cost him a fortune with damages and trashed houses, antisocial behaviour complaints, all this stuff. And I defend the LHA and benefit market because I have a vast experience in dealing with them. And my experience is 1 in 15 tenants that we take on benefits is one that is chaotic or causes you issues, which is a pretty low percentage. So it's absolutely unfair to tarnish a demographic with the same brush. But I didn't know that back then, by the way. And to be fair, until our tenant vetting processes got significantly better, I think at worst we were kind of 1 in 4, maybe 1 in 3 were bad tenants, back when my processes weren't up to scratch like they are today. But he said HMOs are also a high risk strategy. You get the high returns, but obviously you've got 4, 5, 6 or more different personalities living in a relatively small confined space, and you're going to get fallouts more. You need a lot more resource on the management. The property has a lot more wear and tear. So he said individually both strategies work, but you've got to treat them with respect and have their own strategy for them. But there was me, young and hungry, wanting to be this young entrepreneur. I remember going to all these property events and thinking that I was like one of the youngest there. I had the biggest portfolio, and there was a bit of ego there and young naivety. I listened and I respected, but I thought, what, it's great advice, but I'm ready for this. I can deal with this. So what did I go and do? I then go and buy a huge number of HMOs, and I follow the same model that I had success with in the LHA market, although I was putting multiple tenants in rather than just limiting it to 2. And the areas I was buying in, there was another fairly sizable landlord, and this was a little bit different because Mark Homer was not a competitor to me. He was somebody who had worked within my niche. he was the perfect person to give me advice. And, you know, I was a student of his, and, you know, he had the credibility, and I trusted him to give me that advice. So that was all on me for ignoring his information. So I absolutely own that mistake. But the second guy was a couple of brothers in a town that I was buying HMOs in, and they also had vast experience. I mean, they were, you know, they had 250 odd properties. They had a letting agency, but they probably had over 100 or so that they owned themselves. And basically, they were dealing with the HA market. That was their kind of market, and they had a significant proportion of their stock with HMOs. Now, when they knew of me starting my journey, and word got around, it was relatively small to housebound. You know, I'd bought a couple of deals with them originally. That's kind of how I met them. And in their defence, they're pretty straight-laced guys, decent guys. And I remember them telling me over coffee, you know, I was a bit Jack the Laddish back then, and my business partner's called Jack, and you know, basically Jack the Lad. It's kind of it's a name that's been linked to laddish behaviour, but it does sit true with my business partner. So you know, Jack Wicks, but probably not for all Jacks. So sorry if that's not you. But anyway, I digress. And I remember having a coffee with them, talking about other deals that they were looking to sell me, and they heard that what I was doing, and then in the transparency, I thought, well, yeah, I'll share experiences and speak to them. And they said, believe you me, do not go into HMOs with LHA. They said it will go well to begin with, and you will start seeing you'll chase shiny pennies, thinking this is great, you found the golden chalice, and then you'll reach a tipping point of which you'll go past the point of no return, and it will just go into huge chaos. It'll be highly difficult to manage, highly stressful. Don't do it. So again, you've got two really credible guys, very successful businessmen in the exact same niche that I was about to go in, telling me don't do it. But what did my mind say? These guys are my competitors. They don't want me involved. They want to clean up for themselves. So absolutely, I'm going to go for this. That was my mindset. However, in hindsight, I should have realised it was true advice, because previously I'd already had the advice from Mark Homer, who was one of my mentors, who I taught, who I'd learned from, telling me how to do it. But my pig-headedness and stubbornness and hunger, and I think this is a big one for the young entrepreneurs out there. We do a lot of work with young entrepreneurs now, and I'm 38 now, so I still think I'm young. Probably fitter than I was back then, but regardless, I'm not. I'm approaching middle age, and I'm a bit wiser now. But back then, I was so competitive. I still am so competitive, but I wanted to be the first person there, the person to achieve the most in the shortest space time. I wanted to be the youngest guy to achieve it. That was my kind of thing. So I didn't ignore, I just let hunger and ambition get the better of me. I didn't take really solid advice, but I should have listened to it, gone back to the drawing board, maybe taken a month to revise my strategy, and I would have been probably 4 or 5 times further down the line than I am today. Pure and simply because I would have had a sustainable strategy rather than one that was flawed and I've had to change. And so what do I mean by that? Well, those of you who follow my blogs and my weekly updates will be understanding that I'm coming out the HMO market bar maybe 2. I used to have 40 to 45 HMOs with LHA tenants. Probably 95% of them were LHA tenants, maybe slightly less than that. But yeah, do the math. 4 or 5 tenants, between 200 and 250 tenants, and it's a huge workload there in trying to manage that. Make sure that antisocial behaviour. Bear in mind, I got better pretty quick, but at the beginning, 1 in 4 was a bad tenant. So if you go on that metric, you've got kind of 50 to 75 bad tenants, which is a ridiculously high amount. I'm never going to be able to deal with that. I'm now up to 1 in 15, but even at 1 in 15, you're still dealing with kind of one, you're still dealing with 1 or 2 kind of per for 25 tenants, or so you look at 2 times 20, that's kind of the result, which is it's still too high when you've got that volume. Had I been at that level of challenging tenants with, say, 50 properties, or sorry, 50 tenants, probably been far easier to manage. But it just got way too big. I then had to bring people in quicker than I wanted to, and then I was bringing people in desperation rather than in a sustainable, strategic way. So I was bringing the wrong people in, and as you can see, it just spirals out of control. So as a result, some 10 to 15 years later, I'm still kind of dealing with the aftermath of it all, and gradually exiting from the HMO strategy, which, in hindsight, I shouldn't have really been in, or I should have been in either in the professional market, which I would have been one of the forefront runners before HMOs became so mainstream, or I should have stuck with an HA doing the 2+2, which is a strategy that I've perfected and working hard on now, which is in actual fact more profitable than the HMO, even though the spreadsheet will make you think otherwise, or the figures will make you think otherwise. You factor in the cost of management, maintenance, voids, tenant churn, far more sustainable, far more scalable, which is why I've moved across into the 2+2 model. So I hope you found this useful. And the moral to the story is I made the mistake twice, which is unforgivable, and I've paid the ultimate price because I've nearly lost my business because of this. Well, when I say because of this, well, because my business was starting to, the foundations were cracking and it was kind of crumbling around me, I was then making knee-jerk decisions to try and hedge my position with contingency plans, and that led me into the block of flats which I purchased, which was development, which led to the separation of my first business partnership of 10 years, and also got me into more issues and more debt and things that fortunately I'm about coming out the back of now. But it was just look at the compounding effect of a mistake, pretty big mistake, but to be fair, I own this one entirely because I was given 2 opportunities at it. A lot of people don't get 2 opportunities. I still made the wrong decision. So don't let your hunger, your ambition get in the way of your clarity of understanding and listening to advice you've been given by people with experience in your niche. I can't say it any clearer than that. And take a couple of weeks back to digest the information, process it, formulate a new plan before you just run in, like a bull in a china shop. So yeah, hope you found it useful. Any questions, fire them at me. I'll respond to everyone. Bigger topics, I'll still respond. But I'll do a vlog episode, tag you in. Please, if you think someone's going to get value out of this, just tag them in and share it. Or just like it and give it some engagement. It will give the video more reach, which is great. If it's not for you, unfollow, unfriend me, absolutely no problem. But just check out my Facebook group, Runpreneur, or my YouTube channel, Runpreneur, Kevin Britton, search Reader, you'll find it. And all of my historical episodes, there are 100 of them now, and they go up one a day in 7 different topics, and they're all catalogued nicely, so you can dip in and out without getting your social feeds absolutely bombarded, which I completely understand. So, hope that's good. As always, stay positive, stay happy, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Bye.